Hello and welcome to the Go Green Home Show. I'm Richard Mullen, your host. We've been talking about, for the past several weeks, a number of issues that have to do with keeping your home clean, safe, and energy efficient. And so today, we have a guest who actually goes around and checks on energy efficiency, and that's the beginning of what the house can do, and get an idea of what your problems are and what your challenges are, and what the good parts of the house are. So today, we're from got people from HomeWorks Energy in Medford, Mass, with my guest Brie Minerick, and she's here, and she's the training and development manager. And way out in the control room, I don't know if we'll ever get a shot of him, but we might, is Steve Paraka, and he's a marketing partnership coordinator, and he's one of the people that we talk to if you want to find out what's going on with smaller community things. So, hi Steve, great to see you. Okay, so that's Brie and Stevie. So let's get started with some of the questions that I'm interested in, because I go around to homes many times as a moisture mold inspector, and I see the things that are incorrect, and I want to be able to say to somebody, look, here's the solution, call this group or call this group, so you can actually get a solution and something can really happen. Because many times what we find is that people will go, they'll call someone, and they'll be referred to somebody else, and then they'll be referred to someone else, and they'll call me back and they'll say, you know, nothing's happened yet. So, Brie, your job today is tell us what the great thing of an energy audit is and what you do. So I've got some questions I put together, so it's all right. And if you have questions and something you want to interject, feel free to do it. All right, so let's start with some of the questions. What is an energy audit?
So, Mass Save Energy Audit is a full home inspection. We actually like to call it an assessment because an audit sounds kind of scary. A lot of people think of the IRS.
Yeah.
Right?
Good, yeah.
But a full home energy assessment through Mass Save, we go through somebody's house from top to bottom. We look at their attics, their walls, their basements, their crawl spaces, and we look at the insulation levels and whether or not they have enough air sealing. You know, kind of those main things to make sure a home is being efficient.
Okay.
While we're doing that, we look for health and safety, because you don't want to tighten up a home if there's mold, as you experience, or if there's safety failures with the heating or hot water equipment, or moisture issues, or a number of other structural issues that could come up.
Okay, so it's pretty comprehensive then what you're doing. You're not, this isn't just an in and out thing.
Oh, no, no.
What's the time frame? What is a typical investment of time that someone should be ready to put into the house?
We usually ask people to put aside 2 to 3 hours.
Okay,
some homes we go through a little bit quicker. Some homes might take a little bit longer, you know, especially if you're in that old 1800s, 3,000 square foot home. It might take a little bit longer to go through everything with you.
Right. And so when you're in there for 3 hours, so the person going in, they must have had to be able to go through a whole house. They have probably experience similar to a home inspector, I'm going to guess, because it's pretty comprehensive what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
What's the training involved?
So the training for HomeWorks Energy, at least, is a 6-week intensive training course. We actually call it boot camp because we make it so intense. It's both a mixture of classroom training and field training. We do field houses. We get our auditors out there on installation crews, and we also have them go out with other energy specialists to shadow them in the field, so that way by the time they launch, you know, they have a very good background, both from the technical standpoint and also just that field experience as well.
And so maybe if it would help me to give a rundown, like when I go in, I just do moisture and mold, but I have to pay attention to many of the things that you're talking about because they're related. So somebody who goes into a home has some experience in doing testing for furnaces.
Yep.
And so that's I mean that in itself is a skill. Just
it
by
is a
itself,
skill.
just take that away.
It is a skill. It takes a while to go through the combustion safety training. Basically testing the heating and hot water systems, because you have to know what all the different systems are like. You need to be able to do a visual inspection. You want to check for any leaks, gas leaks, oil leaks, anything of that sort. And then, you know, we test this system for what kind of CO it's putting out. So we actually use this piece of equipment. This is called a combustion analyzer. Okay. And this system tests the CO that's in the system. And it also gives us a general idea of what the efficiency it's running at. I turn it on, but it's going to make a buzzing noise for about 3 minutes, which I'm not sure if we actually want to happen on this show.
No, that's all right.
And you technically, when you turn it on, you want to turn it on outside, so that way you're not getting any CO in the system if there is actually CO in the house.
Okay, good.
Fun little fact is you can have CO in the house and your CO detector actually won't go off because they set certain parameters before it will go off. But this will tell us, any parts per million that's happening ambient, and then once we actually put it into the heating system, hot water system, or we also test ovens and dryers if they're gas, and it'll tell us how much CO it's putting out.
Okay, good.
I would definitely say through the Mass Save program and just the auditors I know that work at HomeWorks Energy, we've saved a number of homeowners from serious issues in the house because of testing for that.
Sure. I mean, even you're dealing with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide.
Yeah, I've seen well over 2,000 parts per million a number of times.
With all of this, I think there, and I know a little bit about this, but the amazing thing is that there's no cost to the homeowner for your assessment. Is that correct?
Well, there is a little bit of a cost, but it's not a cost that we charge when we come into the home. So actually, we have a bill that we can reference that there's a small charge on your electric bill or your gas bill as long as you have National Grid, Eversource, or Columbia Gas.
Okay.
And that's what actually gives you access to the program. And it'll be based off of the amount of kilowatts you use or the amount of therms you use. And that little charge goes into this big pot called Mass Save, right, which contributes to all the things that the program offers. So one of them is just getting us initially in the door to conduct the home energy assessment. And then it also contributes to paying for the no-cost items we install that day. So we also install LED light bulbs, we install programmable thermostats, we install water-saving devices, and we even give out smart power strips if, the house needs it.
Okay.
Right.
So all of this is coming from that little portion that's taken out of your bill monthly.
Yep,
And
pennies
so
add up.
everybody's contributing to it.
Exactly.
So the people who don't need it actually contribute to the people who do need it in a way. Is that right?
And also, the one thing I like people to think about is, maybe you don't need it now in the house you currently live in, but 5-10 years from now, maybe you move to a house that does need it, and you have a home energy audit, and it's going to help you make those improvements and make that house more efficient.
Is there a different eligibility? Does somebody have to meet certain criteria to be eligible for this? Like high income, low income, or?
So you do have to pay into the program, and if you are on a low income rate code, you don't contribute to the Mass Save program. That charge does not exist on your bill. However, there is low income programs that you can participate in that do very similar things, and in fact actually give more to homeowners because they're on a low income rate code, so they make it even less expensive.
But a typical homeowner who now owns a $450,000 to $750,000 home, if you come in, they're still running off of that same Mass Save money, right? So there's no charge.
Yep.
This is almost like a no-brainer type of thing.
Oh, that's what we call it all the time.
Oh, okay, good. Because what you're doing is going through these houses, and I mean, there's so much. I mean, we could talk an hour and a half on what you guys do. I'm sure.
Oh, definitely.
There's plenty there, but. Do you find, is there any area, a specific area that you find more important than others when you go into a home? Like ones where you find failure and problems in it?
So it really depends on the house, what you're going to focus on. Because some homeowners have been very on top of updating their house, or some houses are just newer homes, so they're built with a little better construction. The typical thing for a home energy specialist is to help a homeowner prioritize. And if you're talking insulation, usually that means starting in the attic, right? Because the attic is how you cap off the house, because warm air rises, right? So you want to keep that heat in the home. And then you kind of work your way down from there, and you look at where is lacking the most insulation to where you could add. Some homes, though, the priority might be updating the heating system, because if you have an old heating system that is running at 60-65% efficiency, even 70% efficiency, taking advantage of the Mass Save program where they offer 0% high financing, which we call the heat loan, as well as incredible rebates to get high efficiency equipment, that might be your priority. That's really actually just one of the great things about having a home energy assessment is it can be really hard for a homeowner to figure out where to start. I've gone into many homes where homeowners think the most important thing they need to upgrade is their windows. But windows has the slowest payback out of almost anything you could do in your home. I like to call windows your gloves, right? If you're up on a mountain in the middle of winter and you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you know, insulation and your heating system, that's like your winter jacket, your snow boots, and your winter pants, right? The windows are your gloves. At the end of the day, you still want to do them, but they're probably not the first thing you want to do.
Sure. Okay. No, that's a really good point. And I think probably one of the biggest things I see when I go into houses is the problem of over-insulation or under-insulation. So when you go into it, what's the criteria you use to establish how much insulation is needed in an attic, for example?
So through the Mass Save program, and it depends on what utility you have, but we're looking to get people from anywhere from 12 inches to 14 inches of insulation. I don't believe in over-insulation. The more insulation you have, you know, just the greater savings, and you're getting them up to that Energy Star efficiency, which was more of 16 to 18 inches. What I often see people are lacking is air sealing. That's having to do with the convection, with the warm air rising. And so what happens is insulation, that's like your warm sweater, it only slows conduction. So if I didn't have an insulated coffee mug right here, and this was a regular coffee mug, the heat would transfer right to it.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when insulation slows conduction. Air sealing is closing up all those gaps where warm air is escaping. And Mass Save actually finds it so important that homeowners should air seal that they cover it completely no cost, as long as we're able to get a human in there to actually complete the task.
Take an approach in the space. So that's an interesting thing, because I do see a lot of times where people have over-insulated and they end up in their unheated attic having condensation.
They're missing the air sealing, because that warm air is going through that insulation, because that insulation doesn't stop the airflow, right? And now that attic's really cold because you added all that insulation. So when that warm air hits the roof sheathing on that attic ceiling, it condensates. And it keeps happening over and over and over again, and that's when they need to call you to come get a mold inspection, because they start to get mold growth.
In fact, one of the things I see, especially with pull-down, you know, the pull-down ladders, is when I go up, I already will look up and I'll see mold staining right along that wood area.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys do something that's really interesting, and what do you usually put over those pull-down ladders?
So as long as we can, we build what we call thermodome. It's basically an insulated box that has weather stripping, and it's got these nice little handy straps. And so you pull that over the pull-down stairs as you're coming down, you strap it down nice and tight, and then the pull-down stairs fit right up in it.
And when I do this now, when I find out, when I go in a home that someone actually has put one of those boxes in, you can see the total difference in the attic.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because it's old staining, not new staining. But when I go into one that doesn't have it, it makes a big difference. So just somebody doing that, and that's in the program. That's not an extra cost to it, right?
That's part of the program.
Value. Yeah,
as long
that's
as we can do it.
Value.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because usually right underneath those hallways is a bathroom where they're taking showers and stuff, and when they open the door, everything just goes up, but it's blocked out by that. So that's pretty cool.
You know, I can't stress it enough. The first step you can do is just having the home energy audit itself. Because there are so many things you can do to save energy in your home. So it is quite overwhelming if you're not educated of where do I start.
Hey, well, let's talk about, you know, the investment of, we always see big utilities as someone who doesn't want to spend money if they don't have to. So what's in it for the utilities to do this anyhow? To kind of, although they collect the money, but still they're organizing and they're kind of responsible for this program, right?
Yeah, so this is one of the things I find really fascinating, actually. It is a state-mandated program, but it's not a state-run program. It's actually run by the utilities, and there's a couple different incentives they have for doing it. One is they have to meet a certain amount of CO reductions as required by the state, and it's just impossible for them to do that alone in their facilities. Right? So what they do is they claim the savings that they're helping homeowners achieve through the Mass Save program, whether it's through the insulation or the light bulbs or the heating and cooling. The other big thing that I just think's really cool is they're trying to reduce peak demand. So peak demand is that time of the day or time of the year when everybody's using so much energy. In the wintertime, it's when it's 0 degrees or below. In the summertime, it's when we're having those really hot heat waves and people's ACs are running nonstop. At that peak demand, if we can't actually meet the demand, we have to outsource to Vermont, New York, Canada, wherever we can get that energy from, and we're going to pay a lot more for it than if we were able to just produce that energy here. So by reducing peak demand and actually enabling the utilities to meet the demand that's here, they make more money, which is kind of cool. There's that extra little incentive on their own, but it's really beneficial for homeowners.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if there's money in it, and because I know when electric companies do have to go out and they have to buy, or gas companies, the further away it is, the more it's going to cost them to get it cutting into their profit.
Yep, and the more losses they have, because the further something's being transported, the more losses you're going to have along the way.
Yeah, just through the transference of it, it's going to lose a little bit, like electricity as it goes.
Yeah.
It's got to be pushed harder. And now, you talked a little bit when we originally talked about the history of this, how this started in the early 70s and stuff like that. That was really interesting. I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah, so Mass Save, a lot of people don't know that it started in the 70s because they only started hearing about it a couple years ago. And when it started in the 70s, the energy specialists really didn't do a whole lot. They came in, they talked to the homeowners, try and give a little bit of advice, and they would install weather stripping and door sweeps, and they would wrap the hot water tank with some insulation. And they'd shake your hand and they'd say goodbye, have a great day. And as we've progressed in learning more about efficiency and how to really do this well, they started adding in all these other things within the program.
Okay, so and that's going back to the 70s. So if we, right now, I mean, and I can remember some of those installations and seeing them, and they were amateurs in the beginning because there weren't a lot of professionals around doing this. But just a little background on your company. What's the size of your company? How many people are involved in your...
So I'm not sure how many people we are right now. I think we're around 340 to 350 employees. When I started about 5 years ago, we were only 40 employees.
Wow.
We are actually we are the largest home performance contractor in the Mass Save program, and we do well over 3,000 audits a month, which is amazing.
Wow. That's a lot of mileage and a lot of paperwork.
Yeah,
Right?
it definitely is.
Gotta be a
we
killer.
do try to optimize our calendars. It's something the assistant managers in each region take the time to do almost every day because, we're not an efficiency company if we're not being efficient about our drive times.
And so in this case, like we're here in Beverly, you do cover Beverly because of the electric company. Some of the smaller towns aren't covered by your program, right? The one that have their own electric companies.
So if they have their own municipal electric, we do still cover them if they have gas heating. If they're a municipal electric with oil, unfortunately, they're not contributing to the Mass Save program, so we're not able to service them. I would highly recommend if you lived in one of those towns, though, to still see if you can find some energy specialist to come out to your house and give you advice. And I would start by reaching out to your municipal electric just to see if they offer anything within that town.
Yeah, it seems to be a good idea to make that part of their process because they're in the same situation. They'd save money if everybody's pretty well hooked up there.
Yeah, and they have improved it. We always served municipal towns if they had gas, and just 3 years ago, we wouldn't have done any of the LED light bulb installs. The only thing we would do were gas-saving devices, and within the past 1 to 2 years, we've been able to change all their light bulbs out to all LEDs and offer them most things that we can offer people that have, a National Grid or Eversource Electric. So if you had your energy audit in a municipal town 4 or 5 years ago, I'd recommend calling in and having another energy audit done because you still might be able to get a couple $100s worth of energy saving devices in your home.
Is there people who said, 10 years ago they had a Mass Save audit or assessment, and can they do it again? Is there a time frame on these? So because things change so rapidly in a home ages, everything moves. So I'm sure there's more sealing needed, but can they come back and do it a second time? Is that?
They're eligible every 2 years, and
every 2 years.
Every 2 years, yes. And currently, the installation incentives are uncapped. So what I mean by uncapped is that air sealing we were talking about is no cost. if you're eligible for it. And then any installation measures we can recommend are 75% off, uncapped. So if I come into your home and I recommend insulating your attic and your walls and your basement and your crawl space, and it comes out to $2,000, you only have to pay $2,500. If it's $10,000, you'd only have to pay $2,500.
So you're paying 25. So,
which is amazing.
That's an amazing program. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Now I'm more excited when I tell people. I go in and I usually back off a little bit because I know it's expensive, to tell them that they might have to go and do something different here. But if that's true, I mean, there's really no reason why people aren't at least adequately insulated.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Massachusetts is the best program in the United States.
Right.
Nobody offers quite as much as we do. In fact, our company is working on opening an office down in New York and working in the New York program. But down in New York, we barely get into the house at no cost. In fact, sometimes we're waiving the audit fee for the homeowner just because, we want to try to figure out how to help the homeowners and get us in their house so we can give them these recommendations.
No. Your company, I presume, works with subcontractors. Is that true?
To a small extent. We install probably anywhere from 85 to 90% of our own installation jobs, but we do work with install partners, especially this time of year.
Because you're busy.
Oh, we're so busy. And we don't want our homeowners to have to wait that long. And even with working with install partners, we're still booking 1 to 2, sometimes even 3 months out.
So then let me get this clear. Most of what you're doing is done by people who actually work for your company.
Yes.
That's really, I mean, I like that. Because sometimes what happens with a lot of the programs I've seen over the years, they start subbing it out, and they don't have that control. The quality control and the follow-up and all the things that are needed by a homeowner to find out about this. So this is better than I thought.
Yeah. Another really amazing thing that I like to always tell homeowners is the Mass Save also employs an inspection process. So sometimes inspectors will actually show up with me when I'm doing my home energy assessment, and they'll just have their clipboard and they'll follow me around taking notes, making sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, not missing opportunity, explaining everything properly. They do the same thing for our installation crews. Sometimes they show up on the installation job and they'll go around and make sure that, one, the home energy specialist made the right recommendations and is following the Mass Save code, and then two, that the installation crew is doing the install properly. They can also come after the fact. Sometimes the inspectors will call and request to do an inspection, which the homeowner can say, yes to, or, I'm sick of having Mass Save in my home.
Yeah.
Right? Or the homeowner can even call in and ask for an inspection just because, maybe they went through the hassle of pulling 400 square feet of storage out of their attic, or if we had to do some interior wall work, they had a lot of cleanup work they had to do, to paint, and they want to make sure everything's done before they start doing that aesthetic work. And they can request the inspection and make sure everything was done properly.
And these inspectors work for you or the state?
They work for the Mass Save program, so there's both the lead vendors that oversee the program, they have inspectors, and then they hire a third-party company to do the inspections as well. And I just think
so it's unbiased and...
Yeah, it gives a real peace of mind because I go to so many people's houses where, they had a contractor come in, they didn't quite finish the job, they can't get a hold of them to come out and finish the job. And you never have to experience that with Mass Save. If we even, messed up a weather stripping where it starts sliding off, we'll have to come back out within a week or two to fix that for you and make sure that everything is done perfectly and up to code the way that you deserve.
Okay, so you have a pretty good follow-up, so if people have complaints, you have a whole department that takes care of that, I'm sure, then.
We have a van in our south region and in our north region that kind of cover everything. So if we have anything that's small that needs to be done up or gone over with the homeowner, we can send that van out to them.
Wow, you guys are doing a pretty good job.
Oh, yeah.
A large company like that, and did you give me a number of about how many, you get any idea how many, what did you say, how many jobs you do in a month?
So we do somewhere around 3,000 energy assessments a month. The amount of installs per month, I'm not sure of, because it can range from small jobs. Yeah, because some jobs, they'll take us half a day. Some jobs will take us a whole week, depending on how much work there is in the person's home. And then we also are a heating and cooling company. Now, if you have the home energy assessment with us, you are expected to do the installation install with us. However, you have the choice of working with whatever heating and cooling contractor that you'd want to work with if you want to do those upgrades. But we do have a pretty large heating and cooling department, and a lot of our customers are really happy to continue going through the process with us because we have a whole internal department to help with the heat loan process, it's applying for the financing, as well as helping apply for the rebates and kind of just making the process a lot easier because we're a one-stop shop.
So then you saying that you have a HVAC specialist too?
Yep.
I mean, that's a great, that's a service, because I know a lot of people, when I talk to them, I'll ask them about their air conditioning system or their heating system, and they'll tell me things like, well, you know, I don't do this every year, you know, because I try to get them into at least having their HVAC people come out once a year. But I think a good starting point would for someone to come out and check that system out and make sure it's balanced.
So we don't currently do servicing.
Okay.
We do high efficiency heating, cooling, and hot water installs. And then we're starting to offer servicing for the systems that we install.
Okay.
Because we service so many customers, over 3,000 customers a month just for the home energy audits, we don't have quite the bandwidth to offer servicing to all our customers.
So are you capable in your company of putting in the in-the-wall heating?
The ductless mini splits?
Yeah, the minis, yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of those. Those things are amazing.
I mean, it's a great, because people who can't get AC into their homes because of the way the attics are built and everything they've got up there already, that's a great process.
Yeah, well, and if you don't already have ductwork in your house, I just think the ductless mini split is a much better way to go.
Sure.
Because you're not having to tear up walls to put ductwork in. I've seen people where they wanted the AC so bad, they just have ducts running through their house and their living space.
They throw stuff around up in the attic and you can't even get
they mess
around.
up all the insulation, and it's just like, okay. And then it makes the whole attic less efficient. Well, if you put a ductless mini split in, you get that room-to-room cooling option. So if you want to cool your house, you don't have to cool the entire thing. You can just cool the areas you're in. And then you also have a high-efficiency kind of space heating option, which is especially nice for people that have older homes and they don't have zones with their main heating system. Because, you know, in the spring and the fall, it starts getting a little cooler, and you might not want to crank the heat for the whole house, but you're a little cool in the room you're hanging out in.
Let's do something, because let's see if we can do this in the control room. I just want to make sure that we have the contact information so that anybody that's watching the program will be able to take this down and get in touch with you folks, because I think it's a no-brainer to have somebody, if they haven't done it in the last couple of years, they can have somebody come out and do it. So this is the phone number they can reach you at, and that's the office. And who would they ask for if they call? Is there a process they'll go through? So
they should call in and say they want to schedule their home energy assessment. You know, they can mention that they heard about it from this TV show.
Oh, they could do, we got the website.
The landing page right there.
Okay.
And then they want to have their utility bills available, because they access the program through their account numbers and their rate codes.
Okay, that's a good point then, yeah.
Yeah.
I never have those things ready, and then I have to go digging around. So utility bill, call in and get something set up and get somebody out to your house as soon as possible.
Yeah, and then, you know, we can schedule assessments as early as like 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's about a 1 to 2 week waiting period?
Yeah, our schedule is usually booked out about 2 weeks, but, you know, there's always people that have to cancel because something came up at work or this, that, and the other thing, so we can often fit people in. And then they usually, if you found your utility bills, to schedule the assessment, hang on to them, so that way your energy specialist can review the bill with you, because we can teach you a lot about reading your bill, understanding your bill, and the energy specialist can also gain a lot just by seeing what your actual usage is.
Okay, cool. Well, you know, I mean, we could go, I know we could go on another hour and a half, because there's so much important information, but we're coming to the end of our show, and I just want to thank Brie for coming down, taking a trip from Medford, and Stevie in the control room, being in charge of helping our guys here in the studio. And I always like to thank the guys in the studio too, because they do a great job. So anyhow, I'm Richard Mullen, I'm your host, and thank you for being here for the Go Green Home Show.